The excitement of an upcoming vacation was something I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't just a holiday, it was supposed to be a fresh start. After months of long work hours, stress from juggling my career and family responsibilities, I had promised my kids, Emma and Jack, a vacation they wouldn't forget. A luxury cruise through the Caribbean, a dream getaway that would offer us endless opportunities for fun and relaxation. The kind of break I had always wished for but never seemed to get. My children, full of youthful energy, couldn't have been more thrilled. Emma, my 13-year-old, was already planning every single outfit she'd wear to the onboard pool parties. Jack, 9 years old, was looking forward to the excursions we'd be taking to explore exotic beaches. I had everything planned down to the smallest detail: the spacious cabin, the all-you-can-eat buffet, the nightly entertainment. It would be a trip for just the three of us, a much-needed escape from the pressures of everyday life. It would be our time to reconnect, laugh, and make memories that would last a lifetime. But there was one problem, one nagging issue that had been creeping into my thoughts for days. My father and his wife, Carol. The relationship between us had always been strained, and the tension was growing stronger with each passing year. Carol, who had been married to my father for over a decade now, had always looked down on me. She never thought I was doing enough with my life, that I wasn't as successful as I should have been at my age. But what really bothered me was her treatment of my children. It wasn't that she was outright cruel, but she always made it clear that she preferred her own grandchildren, my father's step-grandchildren, over my two. This trip was supposed to be a healing opportunity, a chance to rebuild bridges and foster better relationships. I thought that perhaps by inviting my father and Carol along, they could join us and experience the trip as a family. Maybe, just maybe, this could help smooth things over between us. After all, we had been through enough as a family. It was time to move past the old resentments and start anew. So, I did something that felt like a risk at the time but seemed like the right choice. I invited my father and Carol to join us on the cruise. I thought it could be an opportunity to get away from the old family drama and spend quality time together. It was supposed to be a big, happy family vacation. I wanted us all to enjoy the sun, the sea, and the rare luxury of not having to worry about anything else for a while. The preparations were exhausting, but I was determined to make this trip perfect. I coordinated every detail, booking the rooms, planning the activities, even researching the best places to visit on the islands we'd be stopping at. I was excited about the idea of all of us bonding. And despite the tension between Carol and me, I honestly believed it could be an amazing experience for all of us. The day before the trip, everything was ready. My kids were practically bouncing off the walls with excitement. I had packed our suitcases, printed our tickets, and checked our itinerary a dozen times. All that was left was to wait for my father and Carol to arrive at my house. They had agreed to drive over in the evening, right before we were set to leave. It felt strange having them over, knowing that our relationship wasn't exactly what I'd call warm. But I was optimistic. After all, we were about to embark on a fantastic journey together, and maybe it could help heal old wounds. The doorbell rang just as I was finishing up a last-minute packing detail. I opened it to see my father standing there, as expected, wearing his usual neutral expression. Beside him stood Carol, her smile slightly forced. She didn't seem genuinely happy to be here, and I could tell by the tightness in her posture that something was off. "Hey, everyone. Welcome." I greeted them, trying to keep the mood light. "Everything's ready for the trip. We're leaving first thing tomorrow morning, so make yourselves at home for the night." "Thanks, honey," my dad said in his usual soft voice, but I could see his eyes immediately darting to the kids, who were busy packing their own bags in the living room. Carol walked past me without much of a greeting, taking a quick glance around the house. "So, how are you feeling about the trip?" she asked me, her tone not as warm as I had hoped. "I'm really looking forward to it. The kids can't stop talking about it." "I think it'll be good for all of us," I replied, trying to maintain a positive attitude. But Carol didn't seem to share the enthusiasm. She looked over at my father, who had sat down on the couch, looking as tired and withdrawn as usual. Then, without any preamble, she said, "Actually, I've been thinking about it, and I think it would be better if my grandkids came with us instead." I blinked, unsure if I had heard her correctly. "What do you mean, Carol?" I asked cautiously. "You know," she said, sitting down at the kitchen table as if it were a normal conversation, "my grandkids, your father's step-grandchildren, would be a better fit for the trip. They're well-behaved, and I think they would enjoy it a lot more than your kids." My heart sank. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Wait a second," I said, my voice growing firmer. "Are you telling me that you want to replace my kids with your grandkids?" Carol looked at me with a slight shrug, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Well, yes. It just seems like a more logical choice, don't you think? Your kids are a bit too loud for a vacation like this. And I don't want to cause any stress." I felt my blood pressure rising. The audacity. My mind raced as I tried to keep calm, but the anger was bubbling up. How dare she say that about my children? My kids deserved this trip more than anyone. They had been looking forward to it for months, and now, she was trying to take that away from them for no reason other than her own preferences. "I can't believe you would say that," I said, trying to control my frustration. "These are my kids, and they're going on this trip with me. There's no way I'm going to cancel everything because of this nonsense." Carol's expression didn't change. "Well, maybe you should reconsider," she said coolly. "It's about family, after all. You don't want any tension ruining this trip, do you?" That was the final straw. I wasn't going to let her take away the one thing I had planned for my children. "You know what?" I said, standing up. "If my kids can't go, then no one is going." Carol was stunned into silence, and my father, as usual, said nothing. But I had made my decision. I immediately pulled out my phone and canceled all of the bookings, hotel rooms, the excursions, the activities. Every single thing was gone in an instant. The room was filled with a thick silence as I handed Carol my phone. "It's done," I said, my voice firm. "The trip is off." Carol stared at the screen, clearly speechless. She looked at me as though she didn't know how to respond. My father didn't even lift his head. And as I stood there, I realized I had just done something I had never done before. I had stood up for myself, for my kids, and for the family I was trying to protect. It felt like a weight had been lifted, and although I knew this would create more conflict, I didn't care. My children were everything to me, and I wasn't going to let anyone take that away. The decision I made that evening felt like an act of defiance, a turning point in my life that I had never anticipated. As the days passed after the confrontation, the consequences of my actions started to unfold. What I had hoped would be a peaceful, exciting family vacation had turned into a full-blown battle. My father barely spoke to me after I canceled the trip. Carol, on the other hand, was furious and made sure I knew just how disappointed she was. But what stung the most was the quiet distance from my father, the man who had once been my protector, my source of wisdom and strength. Now, it seemed like I had lost him, too. The day after the blow-up, I was left with nothing but the quiet hum of the house. Emma and Jack had gone off to play in the yard, still oblivious to the storm that had just hit their world. As they laughed and played, I couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt. I had done this for them, to protect them from the toxic environment Carol always seemed to bring. But in doing so, I had unintentionally torn apart the fragile thread that connected my family. My phone buzzed several times that morning, but I avoided looking at it. I knew it was my father calling. We hadn't spoken since I'd canceled the trip, and I wasn't sure what to expect. Would he be angry? Would he try to guilt-trip me into making amends with Carol? Either way, I wasn't ready to hear what he had to say. Later that afternoon, I decided to face the situation head-on. It was time to address this, to make sure my decision didn't ruin everything. I could feel the weight of the conflict pressing down on me. I wasn't sure how things would play out, but I knew I had made the right choice for my children. Still, the anxiety gnawed at me, and I wondered if I had destroyed whatever tenuous connection I had left with my father. I picked up the phone and dialed his number. Hello? My father's voice on the other end sounded distant, almost detached. Hey, Dad. It's me. I've been thinking a lot about what happened. I think we should talk. There was a long pause before he spoke. I don't know what there is to talk about, sweetheart. You made your decision. It's done. The words stung more than I cared to admit. I didn't want to upset you, I said softly, feeling the weight of the conversation starting to sink in. I thought inviting you both would be a chance for us to have a fresh start. But Carol, she just crossed a line. I understand you're upset, my father replied, his tone a bit colder than usual. But what you did, it wasn't just about her, was it? It's about you, too. You've always been the one to shut us out. You never let me be a part of your life, and now, you're pushing me away even more. The words cut deep. It wasn't something I had wanted to hear, but it was something I needed to confront. My relationship with my father had never been perfect, but I had always tried to make it work. There had been so many moments in the past where I had let his disapproving silence weigh heavily on me. I had never really understood the depth of his disappointment until now. I never meant to shut you out, Dad, I said, my voice cracking. But it feels like no matter what I do, it's never enough. Carol's always been so critical of me, and I can't let her treat my kids like that anymore. You have to understand that. I do, my father replied quietly. But it's not just Carol. It's you, too. You've always been so defensive. You don't know how to let things go. I let out a frustrated sigh, struggling to keep my emotions in check. I'm not the one holding on to old grudges, Dad. Carol made her choice. She's the one who started this. And I'm done letting her treat my kids like they don't matter. For a long moment, there was silence on the other end. Then, finally, he spoke again, his voice softer. I understand. But that doesn't make it easier. I wanted this trip, too, you know. I wanted to spend time with you, with the kids. But you've made your decision, and I guess I'll have to respect it. Can't we just talk about this? I asked, my voice trembling. I don't want this to be the end between us, Dad. I don't know, he replied. I think, maybe some things can't be fixed. Maybe it's too late. The finality in his voice hit me like a ton of bricks. I had expected anger, disappointment, maybe even frustration, but not this cold indifference. My father, the man who had once been my hero, had become a stranger to me. And that realization was more painful than I could ever have imagined. I spent the next few hours pacing back and forth, lost in thought, trying to process everything that had happened. My kids, as usual, were oblivious to the turmoil I was going through. They were too wrapped up in their excitement about a future that now seemed uncertain. I received a text message from Carol later that evening. It was brief but direct. You've ruined everything. You've taken away the chance for us to be a family. I hope you're happy. I stared at the screen for a long time, the harsh words sinking in. Carol had never been one for diplomacy, but this was different. She was hurt, and I had no idea how to fix it. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how deeply entrenched her animosity toward me really was. I had never been able to live up to her expectations, and no matter how hard I tried, it seemed like I was always falling short. I sent her a quick reply. I did what I had to do. I won't apologize for putting my kids first. I set the phone down, feeling a sense of finality wash over me. I had done what I believed was right, but the price was steep. The fallout had been devastating, and I had no idea how to begin rebuilding the pieces of my broken relationships. All I knew was that I had to stay strong, for Emma, for Jack, and for myself. As the days dragged on, I started to realize something. The trip, the dream vacation, was no longer the goal. The real journey was going to be navigating this difficult terrain of family, of standing up for myself and my children, and of confronting the difficult truths I had ignored for so long. As the days turned into weeks, the silence between me and my father grew more suffocating. It was like living in a house with a constant storm looming overhead, waiting to break. Emma and Jack, of course, were oblivious to the emotional strain I was under. They carried on with their usual routines, playing outside, laughing, and occasionally asking when they could go on the trip that had been promised. Each time they brought it up, I could feel the weight of my decision pressing on me, but I kept my resolve. They would understand one day, I hoped. One afternoon, when the house was unusually quiet, I found myself sitting at the kitchen table, staring at my phone. I had been avoiding checking it for days. It was easier that way, no text messages from Carol, no missed calls from Dad, and no notifications reminding me of the growing distance between us all. But today, for some reason, I couldn't resist. Maybe I thought it was time to face the music. I opened my messages, and there it was, another text from Carol. This time, it wasn't just anger or resentment. It was an ultimatum. You've made your point. But if you think this is the end, you're wrong. I won't let you tear this family apart. I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what happened. I read the message over and over, my heart pounding. For a moment, I felt the familiar wave of guilt wash over me. Maybe I had gone too far. But then, I reminded myself of the one thing I couldn't shake, I had to stand my ground. For Emma and Jack. For me. If I let Carol control every aspect of our lives, there would be no end to it. I put the phone down and ran my hands through my hair. I could feel the pressure building, not just from Carol, but from my father too. It had been nearly a week since we last spoke, and I had been waiting for him to reach out, to somehow salvage what was left of our relationship. But nothing came. It was as if I had already become a stranger to him. And then, out of nowhere, he called. My heart skipped a beat, and for a second, I hesitated before picking up. Hello? My voice was tentative, unsure of how he would react. Hey, sweetheart, my father's voice came through, softer than I expected. I think we need to talk. My pulse quickened, and I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. I've been waiting for this, I said, trying to keep my tone steady. I want to fix this, Dad. There was a long pause on the other end before he spoke again, his voice thick with emotion. I don't know how to fix it, sweetheart. I really don't. It's not just about what you did with the trip. It's everything. It's the way you've been shutting me out for years. You've always been so distant, and I just can't keep pretending like it's okay. His words hit me like a punch to the gut. I had known deep down that he felt this way, but hearing it so clearly, so raw, was devastating. I never wanted to shut you out, Dad, I said, the tears welling up despite my best efforts to keep them in check. But it always felt like you took her side, no matter what. You never saw how hard I was trying to make things work, for all of us. Carol never understood how difficult it was, and you never saw it. I see it now, he replied quietly. But you have to understand something. I've always tried to make peace, tried to keep things civil for the sake of the family. And now, it feels like you've given up on all of it. Like you're just walking away from everything we've built. It felt like he was accusing me of something I hadn't done. I wasn't walking away. I was protecting my children. But how could I explain that to him? How could I make him understand that my decision wasn't an act of rebellion but of necessity? I'm not walking away, Dad, I said, my voice trembling. But I can't keep pretending things are fine when they're not. Carol's always been toxic, and I can't let her treat my kids the way she treated me. I don't care if it's uncomfortable or if it ruins the family dynamic. I have to protect them from that. I understand that, he said, his voice thick with emotion. But I'm not sure I can just accept that everything is falling apart. I don't know how to fix this. I don't even know where to begin. The silence that followed was heavy. Neither of us knew what to say next. I had made my decision, and he had made his, and there was no going back. But the weight of the situation hung between us like an unspoken question: could we ever come back from this? I think we need time, I said quietly, trying to gather my thoughts. Maybe we just need space. We don't have to have everything figured out right now, but I need you to understand that I'm not doing this to hurt you. I'm doing it because I have to. I know, he replied, his voice softening. But I still feel like I've lost you. And I don't know if I can fix that. The conversation ended shortly after that, and I sat in the quiet of the house, feeling both exhausted and emotionally drained. What now? Where did I go from here? I had stood up for myself, but the fallout had been more severe than I had expected. The connection with my father had frayed to the point where it seemed like we might never repair it. And Carol? She was digging her heels in, unwilling to let go of her anger or control. Days passed, and I tried my best to focus on the kids. But even when they were around, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted irrevocably. The dream vacation I had once imagined, one filled with laughter, bonding, and healing, was now a distant memory, replaced by a stark reality where I was alone in the battle. My children were the only things keeping me grounded, reminding me that there was still hope in this mess. It's a strange feeling when you realize you've reached your breaking point. It's not like a sudden crash or a loud, dramatic moment. It's more like the slow unraveling of something you thought was unbreakable. The days after that conversation with my dad felt like I was walking through thick fog. Nothing was clear, and every step seemed to lead further into uncertainty. I still couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. I thought standing up for myself would bring relief, that the truth would set things right, but it didn't. It only created a new chasm between us. My father wasn't speaking to me anymore. Carol? She had sent more messages, more ultimatums. But I couldn't let myself care about her threats anymore. I had to focus on the bigger picture. Emma and Jack were still in the dark about the real reason behind our cancelled vacation. They were kids, after all, and I didn't want to burden them with the complexities of adult problems. They still asked about it, eagerly, almost every day. Sometimes it felt like a knife twisting in my chest to hear their excited voices when they talked about the trip. How was I supposed to explain this to them without breaking their hearts? I tried to distract them, to make our days as normal as possible. We went to the park, watched movies, and baked cookies together. I kept the atmosphere light, even though inside, I was struggling. Every time Emma and Jack looked at me with hopeful eyes, I felt like I was lying to them. But I didn't have a choice. I had already made my decision, and I wasn't going back. That evening, things came to a head. It was after dinner when the phone rang, and it was Carol again. I almost didn't pick up, but I knew I couldn't avoid her forever. The tension had been building up, and we needed to confront it. I took a deep breath and answered. Hello? I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. Don't act like everything's fine, like we can just pretend none of this happened. Carol's voice shot through the phone, sharp and cutting. You've ruined everything, and I'm not going to let you get away with it. I will make sure everyone knows exactly what you've done. The words felt like daggers. Carol, I said, struggling to remain calm. I'm not going to get into this with you again. This isn't about revenge or who's right and who's wrong. It's about my kids and me protecting them. That's all there is to it. Oh, please. You act like I've done something horrible to them. You think you can keep them from me forever? You'll see, everyone's going to take my side, and you'll be the one who's left standing alone. Her words stung, but I couldn't let her see how deeply they affected me. I'm not afraid of being alone, I said, my voice steady, though I could feel the weight of everything pressing down on me. I've made my choice. I'm not going to let you manipulate me anymore. This ends now. There was silence on the other end. For a moment, I wondered if the call had dropped. But then Carol's voice came through again, quieter this time. You don't understand. You've pushed me too far, and I won't back down. You've crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. The finality in her words made my stomach churn. It felt like this was the point of no return. Everything had been building to this moment, and now it was out in the open, no more pretenses, no more holding back. We were both standing on opposite sides of an emotional battlefield, and neither of us was willing to concede. I understand perfectly, I said, my voice cold. And if you want to fight, we'll fight. But don't ever come near my children again. You're not welcome here. The line went silent for what felt like an eternity, and I waited, breath held, for her to respond. Finally, Carol spoke, her voice low and bitter. You think this is over? It's just beginning. I ended the call, my hands trembling. The conversation had been everything I feared and more. Carol wasn't going to back down, and now the stakes had gotten higher. She'd made it clear that she wasn't just angry, she was out for vengeance, and she wasn't going to stop until she'd torn us all apart. I sat on the couch, staring at my phone, feeling the walls closing in around me. I had chosen this path, but the road ahead felt darker than I ever imagined. I had never anticipated how relentless Carol could be, how far she would go to make me regret my decision. It was no longer just about a cancelled trip or her manipulative behavior. It was about power. Control. And the more I pushed back, the more dangerous she would become. The sound of footsteps in the hallway snapped me out of my thoughts. It was Emma, her small face appearing in the doorway, concern written all over it. Mom, are you okay? She asked, her voice soft. I forced a smile, though it didn't quite reach my eyes. Yeah, sweetie. Just a little tired, that's all. She didn't seem convinced, but she nodded and walked into the living room. Are we still going to the park tomorrow? I made a drawing for you. She handed me a piece of paper with a brightly colored picture of a beach and two stick figures holding hands. My heart broke at the innocence of it all. She had no idea what was happening, no understanding of the war being waged just beneath the surface. And I didn't want to explain it to her, not yet. She deserved better than that. We'll go to the park, I said, taking the drawing from her and kissing the top of her head. We'll go tomorrow. I promise. Emma smiled, her eyes lighting up with excitement. And in that moment, I reminded myself of why I was doing this. Why I was standing my ground, no matter the cost. For her. For Jack. For a future where they wouldn't grow up under the shadow of someone else's control. But even as I made that promise, a part of me couldn't shake the fear gnawing at my insides. I had made my choice, but I wasn't sure where it would lead. Would I be able to protect them from Carol? Could I keep them safe from the chaos she was determined to bring? Only time would tell. The days that followed felt like I was walking a tightrope, one misstep away from everything crashing down. Carol had made it clear that this wasn't over, and every call, every message, every confrontation felt like a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. But I wasn't about to let her win. I had made a promise to myself, to Emma and Jack. I had chosen to fight, and now there was no turning back. I spent countless nights lying awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering what the next move would be. I couldn't predict when or how Carol would strike next. But I knew one thing for sure, she would. The woman didn't know how to lose, and I was starting to fear that she'd never stop until she tore my family apart. But what terrified me more was the toll it was taking on me. The emotional exhaustion was like a weight on my chest, and no matter how hard I tried to shake it off, it lingered. I hadn't realized how much I had internalized this battle until it started affecting every part of my life. I was snapping at Emma and Jack for no reason, losing my temper over the smallest things. It felt like I was losing control of everything, including myself. One afternoon, while I was working, Jack came into the room with a drawing in his hand. It was a picture of me, standing tall, surrounded by a shield made of hearts. I stared at it for a long time, trying to fight back the tears. He didn't understand what was happening, but he somehow sensed that I needed to be strong. He saw me as his protector, and in that moment, I realized just how deeply my actions would affect them, now and in the future. I couldn't let them down. I couldn't be the person who caved under pressure, who let the toxic manipulations of one person destroy everything I had worked for. Carol could threaten me all she wanted, but she would never take away my power to choose. And I wasn't about to let her take my children from me. The next time Carol called, I was ready. There would be no more back and forth, no more empty threats. This time, I would confront her head on. "Hello?" I answered, my voice firm. "Do you think I'm going to let you get away with this?" Carol's voice was cold, dripping with venom. "I will make sure you regret every decision you've made." I took a steadying breath. "You've been trying to break me for weeks, but I'm not breaking. I'm done letting you control my life. This ends now." Carol laughed bitterly, the sound sharp and jagged. "You think you've won? You think you're in control? You have no idea what you're up against." I felt a surge of adrenaline. It was time to stop pretending I was afraid. I know exactly what I'm up against. But what you don't understand is that I'm not afraid of you anymore. I'm not afraid of losing you or your manipulation. I've already lost too much, and I'm done letting you take any more. The silence on the other end was deafening. For a moment, I wondered if she had hung up. But then her voice came through again, quieter this time. "You'll regret this. I'll make sure of it." I hung up before she could say anything else. My hands were shaking, but I knew I had made the right decision. I had finally drawn the line in the sand. I wasn't going to let her control my life anymore. I wasn't going to let her ruin what little peace I had left. The next few weeks were a blur. Carol didn't give up. She called, she messaged, she sent letters. But I didn't respond. I had cut her off completely, and though it was difficult, it was also liberating. The weight of her presence in my life was finally starting to lift. I could breathe again. But as much as I wanted to believe that everything would magically get better, I knew it wouldn't. The emotional scars of this battle would take time to heal. And I would never forget how far Carol was willing to go to destroy me. But I had fought back, and I had won. I focused on rebuilding what was important, the relationship I had with Emma and Jack. I worked hard to make them feel safe, to make them understand that they were loved, that they were enough. I spent more time with them, helping them with their schoolwork, going on little outings, and just being present. I was trying to be the parent they deserved, the parent I wanted to be. There were days when I still doubted myself. When I wondered if I had made the right choices, if I had handled things in the best way. But when I looked at my children, when I saw the trust in their eyes, I knew that I had done what I had to do. I had fought for them, for us, and that made all the difference. One evening, after tucking Emma and Jack into bed, I sat on the couch with a glass of wine in my hand, staring at the quiet darkness outside. For the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't feel the constant pressure on my chest. I wasn't at war anymore. The battle was over. But that didn't mean the fight was won completely. I knew Carol wouldn't stay quiet forever. But for now, at least, we had peace. And for the first time in a long time, I believed that peace could last. I had taken my stand, and it wasn't just for me, it was for my family, for our future. And nothing, not even Carol's venomous threats, could take that away.